What's going on, guys? Once again, it's a nosebleed. We're back, and this is going to be our first episode. So, this one I'm just going to kick it off with pretty much off the jump. We're going to start with college football. Um, feel free to leave comments or about anything that you want us to talk about or anything you want me to talk about. Let us know. Drop it down in the comments. But first, subscribe. Be the first subscriber. Why not? Uh, we're just starting this up. This is gonna be the first episode, so might as well be here from the jump. Be here for the first episode, and just be with the nosebleed for the rest of the road. All right. So like I was saying, we're gonna start with the college football playoff. A couple of days ago, November 2nd, they dropped the playoff selection rankings. So they dropped their top 25. And I'm just gonna kind of go over personal comments about it, and then from stuff what I've been hearing on other resources and from other people's mouth. And I'm just gonna start with like the top four. So one thing before I say anything about who has number one, yes, I'm a Georgia fan. I've been a Georgia fan since I was a little kid, born and raised in Georgia. So if you hear me talking about Georgia in a positive way, it's because I'm a fan. I'm not going to be biased, but I am a fan. So with that being said, obviously, my dogs got number one, rightfully so. Let's just be legit here. Their defense is probably the best defense that we've seen in college football, period. I'm not talking about just this year. I'm talking about in a whole, legitimately one of the best defense I've ever seen. Definitely at UGA. I've never seen a defense like we have now, which is crazy because as I'm recording this, I'm getting the notifications of the news about Adam Anderson. I don't know about it. I'm not going to talk about it on here, just because of just the rumor mill that's going on. Supposedly he's had some accusations from a female. We'll let that be. It's going to work itself out. Either he did or didn't, and it's going to go from there. But going back to Georgia as a team, this team is ridiculous. Um, every time someone asks me about Georgia, I'm just going to legit refer them to the video of the South Carolina coach having a meltdown in his press conference. Like the guy went on a rant. I'm pretty sure if I'm talking college football, you've probably heard or seen it. The man went on a rant and he said, I think the question was asked to him like, "Hey, how do you scheme for Georgia?" And he said, "How do you scheme for like 105-star athletes? Jordan Davis, which is like 340, 360 pounds, like 6'7". Dude's built like a freaking sedan and can run. So he just kind of went on a rant, but Georgia's legit. There's no question about it. Georgia, in everyone's poll on every platform, Georgia was one. The confrontation comes now to number two, and they selected Alabama. So if I was to sit here in front of you and talk as a biased Georgia fan, because I've heard a lot of them, this is the number one thing they say. They're going off of their name, their past. They're not going off of what they've done so far this year. In a way, I can see where that could be I guess, a viable idea of what's going on and why the committee put him there. But other than that Oklahoma loss, or not Oklahoma loss, other than the Texas A&M loss, been a pretty well-rounded team. They made a Miami team that everyone thought was going to be legit at the beginning of the year look pretty terrible. Um, and not downing Miami, but this isn't their year. They've been kind of on a little roller coaster, and this year definitely isn't their year. Because I mean, they're their quarterback. He can't stay healthy, so they keep having problems. But Alabama's legit. I mean, they're not bad. Yes, they have holes, and yes, they have some questions that I wish the committee could have answered into giving us the reason why they're putting them at number two. For instance, the Georgia or the Florida Alabama game, that was a 2 point difference. And after seeing what Georgia has done to Florida, what LSU did to Florida, what Kentucky did to Florida, those are three teams, yeah, in the top 10 or in the top 25. Let's see how many of them are ranked. Kentucky's ranked. Florida's definitely not ranked. LSU definitely isn't ranked. So the teams that Florida lost to, I mean, half of them are good, half of them are not. I mean, half of them are good enough to be in the top. I mean, Texas A&M's like 14. So I mean, they're not bad. But the problem with Alabama being there, look who they played, look what they've done, and then look at this like look deeper into it. Florida is not good. Florida is terrible. Georgia made that very apparent last weekend when we played them. Beat the brakes off of them, and Dan Mullen almost had a mental breakdown in a press conference. So the teams that Alabama's played aren't that good. But for some reason, the committee thought, hey, their win over Mississippi State and their loss against Texas A&M when Texas A&M was unranked is strong, very strong. Bryce Young has looked good. Beginning of the year, everybody thought, oh God, here it goes. Alabama's going to get saved by another, Heisman sent trophy winner quarterback. He's good. He's not. I wouldn't say he's better than the previous ones they've had. He's definitely not better than Mac Jones in that offense they had. And I would argue to say he's not better than Tua or Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts was a roller coaster. But they picked Alabama at 2. I wish we could have got a little bit more information on that or why they selected it, but they selected it. Coming in at number 3 after a big, huge win for them against Michigan State. That team right there is raw. Being led by Mel Tucker, which previously a Georgia coach. He's a beast. He knows how to get people fired up. He knows how to coach, and he knows what direction to put them in. The coach is really good, and it also helps when he has a Heisman candidate running back, Kenneth Walker. That dude is legit. The man had several touchdowns against Michigan, and Michigan was supposed to have a pretty stout defense. He made it look pretty easy. So Michigan State, if they can run the table, if they can stay afloat, and I mean, eventually they're going to have to play Ohio State. If they want to keep Ohio State out of the top 4, they got to win that game. They got to finish out. They just got to win out. It's legit. But Michigan State, really good. That's one team I can see staying in the top 4 and doing really well and potentially being there at the end of the road when it's the semifinal in the Natty. Coming in at number 4, we got Oregon. Oregon's biggest thing they did so far this year was beat Ohio State at Ohio State. And yeah, that was early in the year, but that's a huge win. Like if you look at it from just a college football fan and you're looking at it like Ohio State is not an easy place to play. I have a bunch of buddies of mine that are Ohio State fans, and they'll forever root for them. And if it's a home game for them, they'll push all the chips to the middle of the table and say, "Hey, I'm willing to bet you anything," because he knows how good his team is. They know how good their team is, and they know really how hard it is to go into the shoe and pull out a win against a Ohio State team that isn't terrible. Yes, they had to work out some kinks with C.J. Stroud at the beginning of the year, but they're still a really solid team. Really overall, Olave outside, dude is insane. Their running back, I think his name is Hendrickson. He is ridiculous. He's right there behind Kenneth Walker, the Michigan State running back. Them two right there are going to be battling it out for Heisman. I got a feeling whoever wins that matchup and whoever shows out for the rest of the year, that's going to be your Heisman Trophy winner. Dude's insane. But Oregon got a win. Oregon went to Ohio State, got a win, and they've been really freaking consistent. Yeah, they've had some close games here and there, and it shouldn't be that way. But they're sitting here. They're doing well. So the top 4, you've got Georgia, rightfully so, Alabama, shaky, Michigan State, deserved, Oregon, deserved. So now first 2 teams out. The first one out, Ohio State. So obviously the committee takes a head-to-head matchup serious because they put Oregon over Ohio State, and now Ohio State's sitting right outside the door of making it into the playoff. If we were to play the playoff this weekend. So obviously Ohio State is good. They deserve it. Should they be in the top 4? I don't know. I think that loss against Oregon was kind of painful for them because now they have to fight back and they got to hope that Oregon loses, or they got to hope someone in the top 4 loses, which I see probably, I would say 2 or 3 of these teams won't lose. I'm pretty positive in that. I know one team probably definitely won't lose, and not to be, a fan, but Georgia's not going to lose for the rest of the year until we get the SEC championship game. Our slate ahead of is Missouri, Tennessee, Charleston Southern, and Georgia Tech. I don't see a threat there. Tennessee game could be intense, but don't see it being a threat. But Ohio State is sitting right out there, that door right there. They're kind of sitting in that halfway point, like they need something to swing their way, but they also have to keep proving. And another big controversial one. Beginning of the year, I wasn't with the hype when it comes to Cincinnati, but it's kind of hard to not be with the hype when it comes to them. And I'll say why, because, okay, when you look at Cincinnati, the biggest thing you'll say is, well, who do they play? Okay. But let's look at who they did play. They went to Notre Dame beginning of the year, which is number 10 in this playoff ranking right now, the first one that they released. So they went to a Notre Dame team in Notre Dame who hasn't lost a game since 2017 at home against my dogs. Haven't lost a game since then. So with that being said, Cincinnati, not a Power 5 school, went to Notre Dame and got a win. That's impressive. It's impressive, and it's hard not to continue watching them as they beat teams pretty well. They don't beat them as well as they should. That shows on where the committee put them, because with their schedule, they should be trying to make it impossible for them not be put in the top 4. And I don't feel like they did that with a couple of games, and it cost them. And now it comes back to, hey, you're doing well. Yeah, you're doing great. But at the same time, who are you playing? And it sucks to say that because I feel like they've earned a lot of people's respect, but they're still sitting on that spot. Like, same with Ohio State. Even though Ohio State is a predominantly well-known team in a big-time conference, they still need things to shake out in the top 4. They need some, the limbs to shake and something to fall. And Cincinnati's right behind them. Cincinnati needs it a little bit more than Ohio State does. So they really need some things to shake around in the top 4 for it to happen. Michigan coming out at 7. I feel like that's a pretty average spot for them. Obviously I knew from the jump, as soon as before this came out, I knew whoever won between that Michigan State and Michigan game would be in the top 4. Placement wise, didn't know. I really didn't even think Alabama would be above 3, but committee put them at 2. So that shows you how much I know. But I knew between Michigan State, whoever won that one would definitely be in the top 4. Even though Michigan has lost to Michigan State, they can still be pretty safe on if they win out and they control their own destiny. But at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword now, because they're just like the 2 teams ahead of them. They've got to hope something falls down and something breaks down behind them, because they need to make sure that the teams in front of them lose and the teams behind them aren't doing so well, so they can leapfrog all these teams until they leapfrog into the top 4. Will that happen? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think that Michigan State game was pretty big for them, really big, looking at the effect that it made on the committee. Yet, which I understand, it's November 2nd. There's still a lot of season to go. But, I mean, now they've kind of see what they got themselves into, and they know what they have to do. Will they make it the top 4? I don't know. I don't see it. Seeing with who is behind them and in front of them, I don't know. There's a couple of teams in here that I can see that'll make some things interesting. And things can change. Things could really change. So for Michigan, they've got to do what they got to do. They have got to win out. Sorry. And they got to hope that someone behind them falls apart. Talking about behind them, Oklahoma. Now, this one was really surprising, and I understand why it was surprising, but me being the fan I am of my team, and like, okay, think of it in my perspective, if Georgia would have done this and that, where would we be? Oklahoma is really good. A really good team. Problem with them is they had a meltdown when they didn't need to have a meltdown, but they also had some scares that they came out on top of. So with that being said, like the Texas Oklahoma game, I was watching that one live at my house, And after Texas scored in like one play, I was like, wow, okay. All year I've heard Oklahoma's defense is better. This isn't the same defense that you've seen in the past years. Their defense is better. Their offense is just as good. Spencer Rattler this, Spencer Rattler that, which they can get it now. Spencer Rattler is not the starter. Caleb Williams is. So they had a meltdown at quarterback, which was odd for all of us because we're looking at Oklahoma like, how many Heisman Trophy quarterbacks have you had? And Lincoln Riley has been able to manage that easily with ease. And like, oh, well, I got this quarterback. Oh, I've got Kyler Murray. Oh, Jalen Hurts is coming. Bet, bring him over. He's had so many good quarterbacks and he hasn't had a single problem with all of them. But now he has. And I caught a lot of people off guard. Oklahoma is a good team. They just have too many close games when it shouldn't even be close. Like Tulane. Who's Tulane? Tulsa. Who is Tulsa? Like, and they played on a neutral site because Tulsa had some weather problems going on, and they had to play a neutral site game. Tulsa gave them a ball game, which says a lot about Tulsa, but also says a lot about Oklahoma. So they're on that edge where they've been doing okay, but they're skating by. They're an undefeated team, but this team, when I if I try to compare them to another team, they look a lot like Alabama when it comes to winning and losing their games. Alabama barely beats a Florida team, loses to an unranked at the time Texas A&M team, is getting beat pretty much for 3/4 against a Tennessee team, which surprisingly this year, that team is actually good. But they're in the top 2. Oklahoma, undefeated, come back on a big win against Texas. And yeah, they've had some close games against no-name schools, but Alabama has had some pretty close games against, I guess, well-known schools, but they're not that good. But Oklahoma's at 8. They can run the table. They can run the table. Oklahoma State is under them. That'll be a big win. Baylor is under them. That'll be another big win. They have opportunity to play other big time ranked schools that are right here in this top 25 and make it a case for themselves why they should at least be in the top 5. I'm not saying they won't make it, but I don't see them in the top 4 at the end of the year. I don't. Me myself, I don't see it. I think they're a good team, yeah, but I don't think their defense could hang with any of these offenses that are up here, and that's going from 6 up. I think Cincinnati would give them problems for their defense. Ohio State, I know they would because they've got their stuff together. Oregon, absolutely. Michigan State wouldn't want to see their running back. Alabama's got it together. Yeah, they're a little rough around the edges, but they got it together. And then Georgia, you tell me what you think if they would do if they played Georgia. Because let's be real, that Georgia defense is something else. Have fun with that one because I would not want to be Caleb Williams or Spencer Rattler if I had to play Georgia. Wouldn't do it. Coming in at number 9, we got Wake Forest. It sucks to be Wake Forest right now because of how terrible the ACC has been this year. Like they have that's a conference with one team not having a successful year. That conference just fell apart. Clemson, on their downward spiral that they've had this year, ever since Georgia broke them in the beginning of the year, Clemson single-handedly demolished the whole entire conference because they had been so consistent and so dominant in the ACC the last 4 or 5 years. No other team has been able to freaking hang with them. And then now Wake Forest is really good and hanging with multiple teams and beating everyone that they freaking play because they're undefeated. And now it's come time for them to beat the beast of their conference, and that team ain't even good. I think Clemson's got 2 or 3 losses already. Clemson's not even good. So even if they did go and beat Clemson, congrats. You beat a team that's been broke since week 1. Like it sucks for them because they've done so well. They put it all together this year, but they don't have anything to show for it because they don't have any real competition to come out with. Because when you look at Oklahoma and all the teams ahead of them, they play schools that are in it this year. You know, Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State. They play Baylor. Michigan plays Michigan State. Michigan also plays, we've got Penn State. We've got Michigan State. We've got Ohio State. They play each other. Cincinnati, they're on that same kind of, they're on the same little step as you, Wake Forest, but I think they're a little bit better. I mean, look at everyone in the top four. They play dominant schools. I mean, Georgia legitimately every other week has college game day coming to their game because they're playing someone in the top 15 and they completely demoralize them. So for Wake Forest, it's tough. If they win out, do I see them in the playoff? No. Do I see them in the top 8, maybe 7? Yeah. It just sucks for them because they finally put it together this year and they have nothing to show for it. But hey, you know, we finally won this conference, but this conference really ain't doing it this year. And the last one I'm going to do, Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been weird. Notre Dame has been weird because when I look at a team, my main focus is, okay, let's look and see who they played and kind of see how those games went. So for me, when I look at Notre Dame, I say, okay, beginning of the year, they almost lost to a Florida State team, which I'm not sure. I say I'm not sure being sarcastic. I'm about 100% sure anyone that's watching this, or if I'm talking college football, you remember that Florida State lost to Jacksonville State. Yes, I know. Florida State lost to Jacksonville State. Florida State gave the week before Notre Dame a run for their money. Notre Dame didn't win that one until the fourth quarter. That game was super close. So the fact that Notre Dame is in the top 10 shows their progression. They had their, they had the little turmoil at the beginning of the year, but they corrected it really quick because they had no choice. They had to. There's no option there. If you want to be in the top 10, if you're going to have your mistakes at the beginning of the year, you've got to knock it out and then you got to keep going. You can't BS. You can't play around. You can't hope that, something falls, on you where you don't have to worry about anything. If you're going to be in the top 10, you have to start from week 1 because look at all these teams that are in this top 10. They've fixed their problems. Look at Oklahoma, quarterback problems, fixed it from the jump. They put in a freshman and they went complete nuts. Cincinnati, yep, they're not a big school, but guess what? Doesn't matter. They have went insane. So yeah, just looking at the top 10, do I think the committee got it right? Yeah, I think the committee, as a whole, the committee tried to play it safe, which you're probably going to look at me and be like, how do they play it safe? They put like a couple of people in stupid positions. Hear me out. They put an Alabama team at number 2 because they know that's going to work itself out. Alabama being at number 2, it's gonna fan out for everyone that's underneath them. Why I say that? So Alabama's got to go to Auburn in a couple of weeks, which Auburn is ranked number 13 in this poll. That's going to be a big time game. Does Alabama lose that game? I don't know, but we know what Auburn and Alabama, what type of games they produce almost every year. It's insane. So does Alabama win out? Does Alabama win all the way to the SEC championship game? Does Alabama win the SEC championship game? If Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC, if Alabama beats Auburn and they represent the West and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, people are going to hate it. People that are like non-SEC people or people like fans, they're going to hate it. But Alabama and Georgia are going to be in the playoff. That's 100%. That is absolutely 100% going to happen. If Alabama wins the SEC championship game, Alabama's in. But the committee, being somewhat smart, said something's going to happen out of that. Either they're going to earn their right to be in the top 4, or their cards are going to fall wherever they fall, and Alabama's going to be out. So I think they kind of put it in situations where it is what it is. Same situation with Michigan State and Ohio State. Yes, they lost to that Oregon team, but let's be real here. Ohio State is going to play Michigan State at some point, whether it be for that championship game or whether it be for just a regular conference game. They're going to have to play each other, and it's going to work itself out same way this Alabama thing is going to work itself out. If Michigan State wins out, Ohio State wins out, and they're both in that same position that they are right now, and they go to play each other, one's in, one's out. If one of them slips and doesn't win or drops another game, it could be a different story. If Michigan State drops a game and then they lose to Ohio State, Ohio State might crawl back in, depending on how they've done. If I'm Ohio State, I'm hoping that Michigan State drops a game, and I'm hoping if I'm Ohio State, I'm staying on top of my game. I'm not losing any unnecessary games. I'm not keeping things close. Be dominant for the rest of the year. Go to that Michigan State game. Take care of business. You punch your ticket to the playoff. Guaranteed. Has to be. And I say has to be because that's what I would imagine in my head if I'm sitting with the suits talking about, okay, well, who's in the top four? And Oregon, the problem with Oregon is they're in a really weak conference. They're in the Pac-12. So, I mean, I can see a lot of things shaking out where not even Oregon gets in because of what's behind them, not because of what's ahead of them, it's because of what's behind them. Let's say Michigan State and let's say Ohio State wins out. Michigan State wins out, but Ohio State wins their conference championship. What says Michigan State won't be in there and Oklahoma or Ohio State will be in there? I could see them if Michigan State wins out to their conference championship, Ohio State wins out to the conference championship, and then they play each other. What says they don't put Ohio State at 3 and Michigan State at 4? And then they bump, they'll probably put Cincinnati at 5 and then bump Oregon down to like 6. I don't know, but that's the great thing about this sport and this playoff. It's a roller coaster, but if you're a fan like I am, I say I love it now. I've always loved it when it comes to this playoff stuff because it makes it interesting. Yeah, we want to expand, and that's a conversation for another time. But I think where we're at right now, we're in a very interesting view of college football. And the past couple of years has been pretty consistent with who the at least top 3 teams are: Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I only see one of those teams in the top 4 right now. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is in number 8. Ohio State's number 5. And Clemson is nowhere to be found. So if you are looking to watch a playoff that is going to be interesting this year, I'd tune in. Me being a Georgia fan, I'd say differently. I'd be like, well, yeah, good luck. But I believe in my team, and I know what our team can do. So that's going to be it for me today. I just kind of wanted my first video, kind of want to go over a hot topic that a lot of people have been talking about. Next episode, it'll probably be reactions to games this weekend. Today is Thursday. So I'll probably do a game. I'll probably do like a game review Sunday and kind of just go over things that shaked out this weekend. I don't think there's really any big time games going on, but there's still a bunch of people playing. So I'm going to go over a few of the games and just kind of throw it out there and just kind of review them and give you my aspect on if those games were crucial, any big wins, any big losses, and just kind of just see how things fan out. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is, first video of the channel. So please subscribe if you're watching it. Just hit the button. If you think this content is trash, let me know. Hit me up. Give me something. Give me feedback. I'm all about feedback. Give me any feedback you want. Drop a like if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to keep getting these videos. Hit the notifications if you want to keep hearing me. I'm just going to ramble on. But yeah, feel free to come on back. I'm going to be posting videos pretty frequently. I know this is kind of the beginning of it, but I want to kind of start setting the grounds of it and kind of get this thing rolling. But that's going to be it. That's going to be it for me tonight. Y'all take it easy. And have a great night. Peace.